All right, let's dive into something a little different today. We're going to explore a really fascinating and definitely alternative theory. It's one that claims to solve some of the biggest mysteries in the universe, everything from magnetism to dark matter. And it all starts with a very strange discovery, right here in our own backyard, the Milky Way.
So, the story kicks off when NASA found these absolutely enormous clouds of gamma radiation stretching way above and below the main disk of our galaxy. The conventional explanation, the mainstream idea, is that they're basically the leftovers from a huge explosion, either a massive burst of star formation or maybe an eruption from the supermassive black hole at the center of the galaxy. In short, the standard model says this is energy blasting out.
But the source material we're looking at today asks a really radical question. What if everybody is looking at this completely backwards? What if those gamma rays aren't evidence of a galactic explosion, but of a galactic intake? Like an engine pulling energy in, not pushing it out. And that one question? Well, that's the key to this entire theory.
Okay, so let's break this idea down, starting with that mystery of the gamma ray clouds. You can think of this as the first big clue in a kind of cosmic detective story.
The absolute heart of this theory is something called the charge field. The author suggests that space isn't empty at all. Instead, it's filled with a sea of real, physical, spinning particles, photons. And we're not talking about virtual particles here, but a tangible, photonic matter that makes up the fundamental substance of, well, everything.
So here's the core mechanism. The claim is that any spinning body, and I mean any, from the tiniest little proton to our entire planet and even the whole Milky Way galaxy, acts like a cosmic engine. It's supposedly pulling photons from this charge field in at its poles and then shooting them back out at its equator.
And this slide really illustrates the whole process. According to the theory, as our galaxy spins, it literally sucks in these charged photons at its poles. The spin of the galaxy then adds more spin to the photons, basically supercharging them. The most energetic of these escape as those gamma rays that NASA spotted. But, and this is crucial, other energized photons don't escape. They gain just enough spin and size to slow down and become the very matter we're all made of, electrons and protons. In this model, the galaxy itself is a matter factory.
Okay, so if the galaxy is a matter engine that's powered by a charge field, what else could this field possibly explain? Well, let's move on to the next big mystery. Where do the massive magnetic fields we see all over space actually come from?
The standard model for this is called the dynamo theory. It basically suggests that magnetic fields are created when mechanical energy, like the churning of a planet's liquid core, gets converted into magnetic energy. But this author claims that's completely unnecessary. In this new model, magnetism isn't some kind of conversion, it's a direct result of the constant motion of that underlying charge field of spinning photons.
And the author of our source material, well, they don't exactly mince words. This quote really shows you just how fundamentally they disagree with the mainstream view. They're comparing the established dynamo theory to, archaic medical practices. It's their way of saying the real answer is much, much simpler, and we've been overlooking it.
So the critical point is this. The author argues there's a really strange disconnect in modern physics. See, at the quantum level, physicists all agree that charge causes magnetism. A particle's spin is its magnetic component. The question they pose then is why would we invent a totally different mechanism, a dynamo, for huge objects like planets and galaxies, which are, when you get right down to it, just giant collections of quantum particles?
Now let's see how this whole thing builds to an even bigger picture. This theory of charge and spin doesn't just apply to our galaxy or our planet. It actually scales up to explain the very fabric of the universe, and that includes the relationship between matter and its mysterious twin antimatter.
A key piece of evidence the author points to comes from the Sloan Digital Sky Survey. It found that, when you look at the universe on a huge scale, spiral galaxies are split almost perfectly 50-50. Half of them spin clockwise, and the other half spin counterclockwise. A perfect balance.
Now that might just seem like a random cosmic factoid, right? But according to this theory, it's a profound clue. The direction a galaxy spins isn't just some accident of gravity. No, it tells us something absolutely fundamental about what that galaxy is actually made of.
And here is where things get really radical. The proposal is that galaxies spinning in one direction are made of matter, just like ours. But those galaxies spinning the other way, well, they're supposedly made of antimatter. The theory goes on to claim that even the light from these galaxies is different. Its photons are spun the opposite way.
This all hinges on the idea that photons aren't just abstract points of energy. They're real, physical objects, and their spin is the fundamental cause of all magnetism.
So now, let's try and tie all of these different threads together. We've got a universe filled with a charge field that creates matter and magnetism. And this all leads to the theory's most ambitious claim of all. So, by combining a few established mainstream equations, the author actually calculates the total mass of this charge field. And the conclusion is pretty staggering. The mass of all these charged photons filling space is apparently 19 times greater than the mass of all the protons and electrons, all the visible matter in the entire universe.
Let's put that in perspective for a second. A 19-to-1 ratio means this charge field would account for about 95% of the total mass and energy in the universe. Now that's a number that should sound very, very familiar to anyone who follows cosmology, because that 95% is roughly what mainstream science attributes to dark matter and dark energy. So the theory's ultimate conclusion, the big reveal, is that there is no dark matter. There's just photonic matter, this charged field, which we haven't been able to see because we've had the wrong model for what a photon is and what space is made of. The solution, the author claims, has been hiding in plain sight this whole time.
And that leaves us with one final, fascinating question. If this theory holds any water at all, it suggests a testable prediction. Could we actually prove the existence of entire antimatter galaxies, not by looking for some kind of violent explosion, but just by analyzing the magnetic properties of the light they're sending us from across billions of light years? A quiet little clue to a completely different kind of universe.